All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And some very significant polling data just came out. Cody, tell us what's going on.
Yeah, well, today's been a pretty big day for polls overall, I believe.
Big?
Well, but there's been, I want to say 2 or 3 that came out, a couple of some pretty big significance as well. So I want to take a look at a couple of those today and talk about what they mean for Andrew Yang. Now, before we get too far, I do want to mention, I want to see you guys in the comments. I don't want to bury the lead here, but Andrew Yang did indeed today nab his first of what he'll need eventually as 4 qualifying polls to make it to that December debate. And that first one he hit actually was this poll. I'm going to pull up a graph from CNN here right now. This is a poll conducted by CNN and the University of New Hampshire from October 21st through 27th. Now, what is also fascinating about this graph I'm pulling up right here is it also shows the change since July, which is the next part of the story. First part of the story, Andrew Yang got the first poll he's going to need to make it to that debate. Also Tulsi Gabbard and Amy Klobuchar. So it looks like this poll basically looks kind of like a post-October debate poll. They all got bumps. Kamala's took a big hit, down 6 points. Somehow Tom Steyer going on stage and saying, almost literally nothing helped him. But Andrew Yang had a 4 percentage point increase. Now, you'll notice Amy Klobuchar went up 5 and Tulsi went up 4. So there was, a lot of people moved off Biden and moved off Harris to these candidates. But that isn't the only piece of data we have of Andrew Yang kind of significantly growing and increasing as in the last few months, I would say, from the last 3 debates as far as his support goes and a lot of other things. We talked about the other day how undecided voters are really, there's a lot of them leaning towards Yang. They just haven't said Yang yet, but they go down as a 0 for him. But there are people who are leaning towards Andrew Yang. Yeah. So this, like I said, this poll, on top of being in New Hampshire, which is an early state, on top of helping him qualify for the next debate, it also shows what the trend he's going to need to make it to the next debate, which is big increases in polls. 4 percentage points is all relative, right? But when you're polling at 1% for, you know, polling 5 times higher is very good. It sounds better than 4
there's
percentage
people that
points.
haven't been able to pull that off. Swalwell couldn't go from 0.1 to 0.4.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Kirsten Gillibrand, despite her bending over backwards. 6. Yeah. True. Biden hemorrhages daily more than most of, more than Beto O'Rourke can grow.
If you look, even Warren lost a point between these 2 polls. Really, Bernie was a small winner. But
that's part of the 4% that Andrew Yang picked up. He's shaving it off of these top 3 people as more and more people just start kicking in. And it's interesting. There used to be this saying that you had to wait until the Sunday before elections to really know where you stood, because pastors in the churches, once they weighed in, before LBJ had actually outlawed pastors opining with the Johnson Amendment, and then now that Trump has actually allowed it again and unenforced the Johnson Amendment, there's kind of like this joke that you have to wait until the Sunday before elections is over to really start trusting the polls, because that's when the pastors and the preachers and the imams and the rabbis, give their 2 cents worth from the pulpit. Well, also, I kind of think that, it's almost like you got to wait and see until, some of these other data points and these other things happen before you can weigh in and kind of just really start taking that data seriously. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but the reason why I kind of think it's interesting to look at is just in that, the one poll the 2 polls in this one early state, which is New Hampshire, which is, again, New Hampshire. It's not one of the main states he's struggling in. It still is interesting to see he's doing better where he needs to be. The other angle of the story is we were talking about how you look how his average polling data has been. It's been about 2 points. Yeah. 3 sometimes, maybe 4, about 2 for a while. Yeah. That has to be at 5, basically, if he wants to make the next debate. So one of the first, I think this is, I'm going to show you guys right here in a second, again, shout out to Zach Montalero and Steven Shepard over at Politico for putting this together. It's a Google Doc that actually highlights where people are to making it to that next debate. And here, I'll show you guys. There's only been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 polls released that would be considered qualifying polls for this debate. Yang, 1 for 5, like I said, 1 for 5 isn't where you necessarily want to be, but 1 for 5, if he can step that up a little bit, he has the chance of making it to the debate. And I also believe, let me see if I can move this further so you guys can see Yang a little bit better. Is it here? Oh, there we go. I'll move here. Sorry about that. You'll see that Yang, though, he isn't, it had not been super encouraging. 1%, 2%, 2%, 1%. but that's why I think this is a good trend for him. Also, there's a couple other things in that poll. I mean, obviously, in a poll where you increase when you go 5 times in the amount of votes you get, you're going to say, but we'll look at the favorability from Andrew Yang in this. His net change in favorability, massive.
Yeah. That is incredible.
15%.
Data.
It's higher than Amy Klobuchar. Again, I don't want to sleep on Amy Klobuchar. I'm not going to just ignore her on the graph. Amy Klobuchar, I guess, that debate where we were all kind of like, was that really a good debate for Amy Klobuchar? I guess in New Hampshire they've spoken, and it was. Holy cow! It might have saved her campaign in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
Who
seriously.
knows? But the other story is Andrew Yang, and again, the other thing I want to look at as Harris and Castro really are not doing good in that state at all. But you see the top front runners, and they're not. I mean, aside from Buttigieg, no one else held. Everyone else receded a little bit. I would say, I believe it was Bernie Sanders fell 7%. I mean, and again, this is favorability, not. But in a way, I don't want to say worse, but like if you're becoming less favorable as the campaign continues, that's a really bad sign. Like people might say I guess they're not voting for you anyway, but it can't be a positive sign for your campaign to become less favorable over time. That can't be good.
And this type of favorability is really important because I brain farted before because I'm on this low carb diet, so I start forgetting what I'm talking about in the middle of me saying what I'm talking about. But remember how I said it used to be that you had to wait until the pastors weighed in on the Sunday before to trust the polls? I've been hearing a lot of chatter of data that has been done in which people have started tracking how much the Thanksgiving dinner affects people, affects candidates. And apparently there is a small correlation between people that were growing in favorability and smaller candidates that people hadn't heard about, and a small boost that happens after Thanksgiving dinner. Because when people start sitting around and talking, especially in the Latino community where the patriarchs and the matriarchs of the families drive a lot of the political thought and the conversation of the more tightly knit family groups, when you sit around and you have Thanksgiving dinner and all of a sudden somebody says, oh, well, this Andrew Yang guy's come out of nowhere. There's actually a big boost that happens during all of those political Thanksgiving conversations, and some people avoid like the plague, but others of us absolutely relish. You know what I'm saying? And I'm kind of curious to see if this positive favorability doesn't give him an actual electoral and poll boost after all those Thanksgiving Day conversations. Because who else are you going to talk about other than the guy who's skyrocketing in favorability, unless you're talking about the person who's plummeting in favorability? And I'm pretty sure Kamala Harris is one of those on the bottom of the graph, right?
She's down there. Unfortunately, Harris isn't doing well. Again, she's one of the few people that got like hammered in the polls after that last debate. Marianne also not well, but she's not been campaigning as hard. Delaney, a lot of people fell. Seth sticks in the list. Good for him. Steve Bullock. You think Steve Bullock only fell 1% in the favorability because people just still don't know who he is? They're like, Steve Bullock, I don't know who that is. I have no opinion of anyway. I apologize to Mr. Bullock. However, another thing I want to bring up is we were talking about how if Yang wants to make it to this debate, he's going to have to averaging and polling at 5. Now, this Emerson poll does not count as a poll to qualify, but he had 5% in it. Once again, he's kind of... It looks like he's replacing Harris as that person just barely on the outside looking in at that kind of double digits, Buttigieg, Sanders, Warren, Biden tier. Buttigieg is he's starting to increase as well, but that's a pretty good sign. Now, Emerson had not conducted a poll in the state of Arizona before this, I don't believe, for this specific primary, so we don't have any data on if he had an increase in growth in that one as well.
Okay.
But we still can see that Andrew Yang had another 5%. Not going to count, but again, it doesn't matter if some of these polls count. If he's averaging 5-6%, the likelihood that across the board he'll increase his, not platform, but his, profile.
Well, but then you're starting to get into Ross Perot numbers. You know what I'm saying? He
replacing Harris entirely, almost, right? I mean,
yeah, you're starting to get into no longer fringe candidate, but into serious numbers, where we all know that Biden, Harris, and Warren is a godhead that won't survive the crucible. Okay? And when the heat of the media and the scrutiny of all of the people that finally start tuning in, because finally we actually have to start tuning in, and I got to start paying attention to politics because this week is the election, or this month is the election, so I might as well actually start watching the debates or these highlights. I mean, if you're a hardworking mother of 4, if you're a hardworking father of 3, if you're an entrepreneur who's starting a company, or a college student who is just nose to the grindstone, or a blue collar person who's working double shifts in order to feed your family, the last thing you're worried about in those few minutes of leisure time you have is catching up on what the political class and the chattering class is saying, especially if your hobbies are elsewhere. For those of us where our hobbies lie within a lot of the political realm and the pop culture realm, we're already tuned in. But for these people that are duty driven in their participation of politics, where they feel like, yeah, we should vote because we have this beautiful, democratically elected republic that I want to be part of and I want to preserve, that's enough to get them to the polls and make them feel, like, hey, I should tune in and I should participate. But they ain't thinking that until the month of the election. So if you can start pulling amongst the chattering class and the people that are tuned in already, these kind of 4 to 10% numbers, that is extremely significant. And if you can be pulling those numbers in the general polls while having plus 15 favorability, it's not like people are hearing about you and then disliking you because they heard about you. They're hearing about you and liking you more. What's Biden's favorability increase? On that exact same graph, Cody.
Well, I believe there's none. It's a slight decrease, I believe.
Yeah, wasn't he like? Yeah, it was his little bar was just tiny compared to
7% decrease.
Yeah, 7% decrease. See, you can still be the Harambe of the polls and just be like Silverback smashing everybody around you when it comes to your poll numbers. But if there's a leak in that boat, man, we're not sure if you're going to be able to row her to shore before the boat fills up with water. Because the more water you got, the harder it is to row. And there's this exponential effect. So it's not good that Biden has a negative favorability, meaning the more people hear about him, the less people like him. It's kind of like me on the show. People like listening to Cody. The more I talk, the less they like the show. So I'm just going to let you talk now, Cody, because you've got a higher favorability rating. And my ego is humble enough to handle that.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. Let's see. Well, before we move on too far, there's one. I want to get your opinion on one more data point here. I think it's kind of interesting. So going back to that Arizona poll for 1 second, you'll notice another interesting data point from that Emerson, Arizona poll. Throw it up there. Is that here we go? Andrew Yang, they found, was a favorite of the 18 to 29 crowd at 19%, which we've seen as another positive trend for Andrew Yang. Now,
much bigger, yeah.
Bernie still does the best, I think, under 50 as a whole. It is hilarious that he has 35% of his support under 50 and 7% of it over. Like, it is like at a certain age, you just don't tolerate Bernie Sanders anymore. It's really funny. I would actually.
Well, you'll notice that over 50-year-olds remember the threat of having to go to war with communism. That's why they've seen firsthand just how bad the results of Bernie Sanders' ideas are. That's exactly the reason why.
Okay, perhaps. I don't know. Anyway, that is really fascinating to me. And then Andrew Yang's doing well in there. However, there's one state we haven't talked about yet that Andrew Yang is really going to need to step it up in if he wants any chance of performing well. You don't have to win Iowa, but, like, dude, it's kind of hard to run a presidential campaign if you get hammered in Iowa by, like, 40 points. You know what I mean? Like, if it's not even close in Iowa, it's hard. So,
there's people that have done it, but it's a rarity. It's generally a bellwether, those first 4 states, to see how well you're going to do.
Well, especially, here's the other thing, too. It's one thing if you're like, yeah, I don't like campaigning in Iowa, I'm going to lose it. It's another thing if he's invested not super heavily in Iowa, but he's spent time in Iowa. This isn't a state he's punted, right? He wants to win this. So,
yeah,
Iowa released their youth straw poll, an Elections 101 event. And this, I believe, is like officially done through the state. It's on the iowa.gov website. I believe the exact parameters everything a little bit. But again, it was they're asking young people, if you were to do an election today, who would win the primary? Donald Trump wins the Republican primary, I guess, which is no surprise. The Democratic primary, however, Bernie Sanders, the Pied Piper of young people, won again, 15%. He wins amongst the youth in Iowa as well. However, third place. Here's the other hilarious thing. Without looking, Carden, guess who was the 2% amongst the Utes in Iowa? So we had Bernie Sanders at 15, mind you, too. It's not like Bernie blew it away at 45. 15% from Bernie. It was kind of spread field. The listeners already might have caught it. Who do you think is number 2 behind Bernie and before Yang? So it goes.
I guess it would have to be Elizabeth Warren. No, Pete Buttigieg.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden?
Amongst the youths in Iowa. I don't understand it at all. I have no idea why young people in Iowa like Joe Biden so much. No, I have no idea why young people in
Maybe it's
Iowa
because
like Joe
Iowa
Biden more
has
than
been
Andrew Yang.
spoiled with so much attention for so long because of its early voting that even the youth have been contaminated by the establishment. They're not even rebels out there in Iowa anymore, man. You know what I'm saying?
Let's see. How's Tom Steyer doing? Tom Steyer, actually, you might be right. It might just be who's actually ran commercials. Because Tom Steyer is performing at 4.5%, fairly high as well. But
Wow, okay.
I do think it's interesting. So we're seeing a couple trends that look like start forming. I don't know if you can say it's a new trend forming. It's just we're reinforcing the fact that Andrew Yang is basically that kind of second tier, like Bernie Sanders, like I said, Pied Piper of the young voter. He's got all of them.
Okay.
But that next guy increasingly is becoming Andrew Yang more and more. That's second to Bernie in the young votes. Now, the difference, I think, is I don't think Andrew Yang's going to be the kind of candidate where he's going to get this knee jerk at a certain age. You just don't tolerate him anymore. You know what I mean? I don't think Andrew Yang's going to have the problem of people like over 55 just being like, nope, Andrew Yang, I will never vote for him. For whatever reason, Bernie Sanders is like, he can't even get in the door of over 50 compared to what he does under 50, which is a really weird divide. But that's the main takeaway today is that indeed Andrew Yang has hit his first poll he's going to need to qualify for that December debate. That is huge. He's going to need that. And not only did he hit his first poll, he needs to make it to that debate. It was an early state poll, and he needs to keep up this exact trend. Whether it's increasing your polling by 5 times or an infinite percent because you're at 0. Getting to 5%. Whether it's the first poll Emerson ever does in Arizona for this cycle, it doesn't actually help you or not. Whether it's this really important CNN University of New Hampshire poll in the state of New Hampshire, which you need, whatever poll it is, he has to be trending up this way. And the first data points kind of after that debate and kind of now coming into, I would say this, it kind of felt like even though a lot of stuff was still, it was until that debate had time to come and pass for a week and no one's talking about the debate anymore. Now it feels like that last little gap between the next debate, that December debate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is the time he needs to start doing this. And early returns are he's doing it. Young people still love him. That's not going away. He's going to need that edge. And he needs to keep performing like this. Worth noting again that Tulsi and Klobuchar also on this poll perform very well. Doesn't mean that the media middle runners who are really only there because they're high profile, like Buttigieg and not Buttigieg, I mean O'Rourke and Booker and Harris, like they're only really up higher because people are like, I've heard of them, like, you know what I mean? They haven't really had that fervor. Are we going to see them start getting replaced by the candidates like Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard that have these movements of interest behind them? Maybe. I mean, if it's going to happen, this had to happen first, right? So step 1 complete. Can they keep it up? We'll see. But so far, once again, it looks like everything's coming up young. So the last thing I want to see, I really want to see, like we probably won't see the numbers for a couple of weeks, that mid-November Iowa poll. If one comes out mid-November from Iowa, that'll tell us what that ad campaign did, and that'll basically give us an idea, is he going to do what he has to do in Iowa before that debate cut off? So Yang campaign news, pretty good stuff for Yang coming out of this. It's all looking... positive's the word, not the one I'm looking for, but things are looking good. It has to start here, right?
Yeah, nothing's crazy or on fire. It's good but unglamorous news, but very slow and steady. And as we know, a slow and steady pace is what wins the race. So let us know what you guys think. If you haven't had a chance to like or subscribe, please smash that like button or subscribe to this channel. If you want to hang out with us tonight, we do all of our live streams on Tuesday. Make sure you give us a ring at 1-833-PSP-RADIO to leave us a voicemail. We answer all of the voicemails as often as we can. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you in the next video.